if they want to do that, they could probably do it anyway. But the brick patio makes it a little more durable in foul weather and that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't have any objection to it, except for the impacts that it may have on the residential neighbors. And I think if the zoning board is going to conduct a hearing on that, they'll hear from people and they'll decide, on the merits on that. But that would be my lone comment really to the zoning board of appeals. I mean, everything else Rick has said they're going to take care of. So I think that should be.
It's really the only, I mean, the generator is the next question, and that's held in abeyance, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
The exterior lighting sounded like the applicant was going to address it. So the only issue really is the planning board comments, if any, to the zoning board. Does anybody else feel like we need to make comments? Any other board members?
Yeah, Sam, Ian here. I do. I think, as I've said before, I think we always should make comments, even if the comments are that we're ambivalent or indifferent. And that's where I fall on this. I think there's no planning issue that dictates they need a patio. If it complied with the code, I would certainly support it. The applicant's looking to vary the code, and that's a zoning board thing. So I think it's up for them to decide, but I think it always behooves us and them for them to hear if we are indifferent, as opposed to not sending anything and keeping them guessing. So.
Well, I mean, I'm indifferent. So
Sam, what if we said that we basically are happy to defer to the zoning board, but that we are concerned about the impacts on the adjacent residential properties?
Again, I mean, I don't know that it necessarily rises to the level of concerned, which is pretty low on the bar.
Yeah.
But I'm not, listen, I'm not saying that's the way it's got to be. If anybody, I would love to hear from, the rest of the board, and,
I'm in the camp of, if we're going to make a comment, the comment that I would make is that I'm indifferent, that we are indifferent to it. I think if we do it the way that Randy just suggested, where we have a concern, I think that, puts too much weight on the negative aspect of what we think about this patio. And that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that we're indifferent, and it's really a zoning board decision. So I don't think we should weigh in on it. I'm for the neutrality more than anything else. And if we need to make a comment, that's the comment that I would make.
I agree with that. Ed and Sharon?
Well, I agree with that, because then, zoning board has the opportunity for a public hearing. So the noise in the neighborhood will come out in the public hearing if anybody in the residence is concerned.
Okay, thank you, Sharon.
Yeah.
Ed?
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually am in Ian's camp that I think we should comment to the ZBA when we're asked to. I think it's a good thing. In this case, I would phrase it as we don't have an objection, right? I would simply phrase it like that. And they'll apply their own standards to this, which include, kind of concern about noise as it impacts a residential neighborhood, if that's part of their consideration.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Please.
The relief that they're going to need from the Zoning Board of Appeals relates to total lot coverage. It's not really directly related to, let's say, a setback from a property yard, which might raise concerns over noise or something of that sort. So the ZBA's deliberation is going to be about the issue of the excessive coverage, which is I believe, about 900 square feet. However, this does not qualify as a minor site plan, so it will be required to have a public hearing in front of the planning board as well, at which time the public will also have an opportunity to speak, and that's probably the more appropriate time for the potential for impacts on the neighbor from noise and things of that sort to be discussed and to be heard. So,
good point, Sarah.
Well,
can I just make the other comment that the noise, nobody can grant a variance from the noise ordinance. So unless they can demonstrate, that the generator or whatever they're going to use there is compliant, then it's a no-go. I also just did want to thank the applicant for taking these steps to bury the generator, because that was something we had asked them to do. So I think that was a good move in the right direction.
Yeah, but with the whole generator issue sounds like it's going to be subject of another conversation for another day. Although I agree with you about that, Cassie. It's better to be underground. That came up, I think, the first time we had this application. Glad that the applicant is moving in that direction. All right,
Yeah,
so
that's helpful.
then wrapping this up, I guess is there general agreement that we can say that we have no objection? I think Ed, that was your language, that we have no objection to the application to the for the variance to the zoning board. Are we in agreement on that, folks?
Yeah, that works.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
How does it work, Sam, in that the application as far as lighting and the generator are not complete? So will they'll file an application to the zoning board with those items not clear?
Yeah, I think that Mr. Whalen can respond to that, but I think the answer is they're going to be coming back to us with that somewhere down the road, correct?
Yes, Richard Whalen again. So first of all, we have an application pending with the zoning board, and the next step there would be, for them to schedule a public hearing on the total lot coverage variance. That's going to take, it'll take a little while. I'm sure it'll be a few months before we are through the zoning board. In that period of time, I hope to address the lighting issue. So when we come back to you, hopefully with a zoning board variance in hand, we would come back also with a plan for the lighting. In other words, I want to be able to deal with that during this interim. I do want to clarify on the with regard to the plantings. All we're proposing is privet hedge 6 feet high. So we show that where that would be planted. I don't know that we need an elevation drawing. It's going to be 6 foot tall privet hedge. That's really the one, vegetative barrier that we're proposing to do. And hopefully, what we're showing on the site plan, along with something saying 6 foot tall privet edge is sufficient.
Just speaking on behalf of the planning department, I think we feel that would be sufficient. Just if the notation was changed to be specific to the height, the species, type of plant, on the site plan, because it's not a complicated thing. It's not like a full comprehensive site landscaping plan. It's just one notation, one type of plant. So we feel that's sufficient.
All right, so we'll do that because right now it just says vegetation or something. That's some very, it's not specific. Lastly, with the regard to the generator, we're not going to propose a generator unless it complies with the town's noise standards. That's really where we are. Whether that involves getting it will involve a new generator, presumably, if we go forward with it. By the way, I appreciate the comments about checking with NYSERDA and so forth. But if we can get the funding, we'll look to buy a generator that, with or without noise baffling, will meet the town's decibel reading limitations in a residential area. So maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. So anyway, I appreciate your time on this tonight. Thank you.
Very good. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, which is actually going to move back. I understand that Mr. Girardi is in the waiting room right now. See his name up on the screen.
Yes, Chair, I'm going to allow them in now. There's just a moment.
Comments about checking with NYSERDA and so forth. We'll look to buy a generator.
Mr. Wayman, you can be heard.
Noise baffling will meet the town's decibel reading limitations in a residential area.
Excuse me, everybody.
Someone
we just
has
have
to keep their
yep,
television
I
on.
know.
Anyway, I appreciate your time.
Excuse me, Mr. Richard.
He's repeating. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, which is actually.
That's a replay.
Yeah, I can tell.
If I could ask everyone to just wait 1 second. This is Mike, the director at LTV. I'm going to be muting Mr. Girardi for a moment. Excuse me, Mr. Girardi, there's an echo due to the fact that you have the broadcast in your room. If you could mute that, please, so that you're only communicating.
Is that me you're talking to?
Correct. Now that you've muted it, it sounds better. Okay.
Okay.
We can continue. Everyone's welcome to unmute and come back in. Mr. Chairman, do you want to unmute yourself?
Sam, you're muted.
There we go. Okay, we're all on the same page and we're all on the same at the same point on the broadcast, correct?
Yes, Chair. We're ready to go.
Good. All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Girardi, thank you for being here. The way this will work is that first we'll hear from Marco Wu from the Planning Department, give his report, and you'll have an opportunity to speak. I understand you don't have an attorney or other professional planner representing you, but you'll have an opportunity to speak after Mr. Wu gives his report. And then Mr. Ed Krug from the Planning Board will speak on the application, and then we'll have a discussion. There are a few items that the Planning Department has. Hello? There are a few items being here.
Excuse me, everybody. This is Mike again from the TV. Yes, excuse me, Richard Girardi Jr. I see you. Could you please turn down the audio in your room, which is displaying the audio of the meeting? You can't have the broadcast in the same space while you're using Zoom at the same time. That's creating a feedback loop. Simply only communicate through Zoom.
Through Zoom.
How's that now?
Perfect.
Better? Okay, sorry, that was.
Okay, it's all right.
Thank you.
All right, so anyway, I don't know if you heard, but first Mr. Wu will give the report from the Planning Department. Then you'll have an opportunity to speak. As I was saying, I understand you don't have an attorney or a professional planner on your behalf, so you'll be allowed to speak directly.
Right.
And then after that, Mr. Ed Krug from the Planning Board will give a report. Planning Board will have a discussion. There are a number of questions that the Planning Department has prepared for us to address in the course of Mr. Krug's report. And then we'll wrap up this application for now. This is an ongoing process, the planning process. So the likelihood is that there'll be further meetings down the road. All right, Marco, you're muted right now, so unmute yourself. Go right ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna put on a bigger overview of the area first, so you can see that this is in Springs around 3 Mile Harbor. This is what I have highlighted in teal is NB. These are the lots in question. The subject lots. It's surrounded by mostly residential uses, as you can see. A5 over here, B zoning, A zoning, A residence, B residence, and 3 Mile Harbors to the west.
Can you tighten up on that?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I will. I'm just. This was just a brief overlook, and then this is the aerial that's zoomed in a bit further. I do have additional pictures, but before we get there, everyone sees where the aerial is, and then I'm going to go to the site plan right now. And I'll zoom in when necessary. So this is an application to construct a parking area with associated fencing and drainage for cargo trailers, an area for outdoor storage, a concrete pad for an 8-foot by 14-foot walk-in cooler, and a proposed smoker on a 6,899 square foot parcel, zoned NB neighborhood business near 3 Mile Harbor in Springs. The parcel is cleared of natural vegetation. It contains 3 attached pre-existing non-conforming buildings containing a restaurant use and a single-family residence. The residence is considered to be a pre-existing non-conforming use in an NB zoning, while a restaurant use is considered to be a permitted use. So these are the 3 structures, 3 attached structures. And so we have the residence here, which is 2-story frame building, a little 1-story, there's a 2nd-story deck here. I believe this is part of the residence as well. And then the restaurant portion is in this square here. The cargo trailers are located here. Just so some history for the parcel, although there are 2 Suffolk County tax map numbers, the lots are considered by the town as merged properties. The parcel was originally a 2-story frame residence with an attached 1-car garage, an attached 1-story frame commercial structure with a basement, and a 2-car garage, all erected prior to the adoption of zoning. So around, and that garage, that one car garage, is what used to be this, and it was converted into living space in a ZBA application that was done in the 70s. So in around 1979, it appears that the one-story commercial structure, which was this structure here, was converted into a restaurant. According to previous building permits. The most recent CO that was issued in 2005 and aerials indicate the building footprints have remained the same. It appears that the existing parking for the residents and restaurant are located in the right-of-way, which is Maidstone Park Road and Richardson Avenue. So the applicant is proposing to delegate the western yard portion of the property for outdoor storage, a proposed smoker, and parking for 4 cargo trailers. This is the cargo trailers here in pink, the smokers over here, and the cooler pad, the concrete pad with the cooler on top is over here. In addition, a new outdoor walk-in cooler is proposed, which is to replace an existing outdoor walk-in cooler. The sizes of the trailers and the cooler. So we have 2 enclosed cargo trailers, which are 13 foot by 6 foot. They're 5 feet in height. 2 other cargo trailers, which are 11 by 6 feet and also 5 feet in height. And the walk-in cooler, as mentioned before, is 8 foot by 14 foot and it's 8 feet in height. Half of the yard is to be for the parking of trailers and storage of items, unspecified for the applicant for a catering business on a proposed gravel surfacing. It is noted that a catering business is not a defined use under the town code's list of use definitions, but could be considered as an accessory use to the existing restaurant. Excuse me. The planning board may wish to request a determination from the chief building inspector if the proposed use is considered an additional second use separate from the restaurant or is an accessory use to the restaurant. A second commercial use on a commercially zoned lot is permitted, however, may require additional parking standards for a catering use, which is undefined at the moment in the town code. The applicant should submit a narrative of the usage of the trailers, including their relation to the existing restaurant use, frequency of use, and maintenance, if any, is required. It appears that the remaining half of the western yard portion is currently being utilized for the storage of various items and outdoor seating for the restaurant. Aerials have indicated that the seating placement is recent, sometime within the last 3 years. The outdoor seating for the restaurant could be related to the outdoor dining pilot program enacted by the town of East Hampton in 2021. Restaurants, provided they obtain the appropriate permits from the town fire marshal, can allocate dining seats outdoors due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The applicant should submit a narrative of the outdoor seating usage regarding its usage, outdoor seating permits from the fire marshal if it is related to the outdoor dining program, and the permanency of the seating. If outdoor seating is to be permanent, the increased number of seating will need to meet site plan approval standards and should be considered as an expansion of the existing restaurant use. The parking for the residents and the restaurant appears to be pre-existing, and the number of existing parking spaces is unclear and yet to be determined. The trailer parking may increase the site's parking requirements if it is determined by the building inspector to be a second use. The existing parking appears to be located off-site and on the Maidstone Park Road right-of-way. In addition, there are 2 smaller parking areas located partially off-site along Richardson Avenue. The following are the parking requirements if the lot were to meet current zoning. So for a single-family residence, is 2 per residence. For a restaurant, is 1 per 3 permanent seats, or 1 per each 3 persons of rated capacity, plus 1 per employee per shift. A floor plan from a 1992 building permit indicates that the restaurant may have at least 44 seats. It is estimated that the parcel under current zoning would require at least 28 off-street parking spaces, at least 26 for the restaurant use, which is not including parking for staff, and 2 spaces for a single-family residence. It is recommended that the applicant submit a parking layout that illustrates the maximum number of parking spaces possible and existing and proposed parking calculations on the site plan. It is unlikely that multiple parking spaces could be situated on site given the parcel's limited lot area. The parcel is pre-existing non-conforming for side and rear yard setbacks and a minimum lot size at 6,899 square feet, where 10,000 square feet is required for neighborhood business. I'm just going to zoom in on the calculation numbers. Sorry, we're going to leave off. Portions of the building are near the property line, with the closest setback to a residence district being 3.9 feet on the eastern side. The applicant's proposal will increase the pre-existing lot coverage from 3,167 square feet, which is 45.91%, to 3,455 square feet, which is about 50%, where 2,759 square feet, 40%, would be permitted as a new lot. Similarly, for the existing total coverage, it would increase from about 69.4% to 85.46%, where 70% is normally permitted. The proposal for additional coverage would require 2 coverage variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals for exceeding lot coverage and total lot coverage. The residences are located on the eastern here and south here and on the north here, basically everywhere else. It is noted that the proposed cooler, stockade fencing and gates have been proposed to be near the property line. At the moment, the walk-in cooler and 6-foot fencing do not meet the required 10-foot accessory structure setbacks. The planning board has the ability to reduce accessory structure setbacks if it were to find the structures were to be in the interest of good planning. No sanitary information has been submitted at the time of review. The existing sanitary system should be depicted on the site plan in addition to sanitary calculations. Under Chapter 210-3-2, all non-residential properties that require site plan review pursuant to 255-6-30B, 2, 4, or 5 will require sanitary upgrade to a low nitrogen system. It is unclear if the site plan will require an upgraded sanitary system, as it is unclear if the proposed trailer parking would increase the site's parking requirements. It is noted that the additional outdoor seating, if it were to be permanent, would increase the parking site requirements, require approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, and would trigger a sanitary upgrade if the sanitary system is not a low nitrogen system. There's no light fixtures that have been proposed or lighting plans that have been submitted at the time of review. All light fixtures must be fully shielded and should meet the board's lighting policy. It appears that the restaurant building contains fixtures in the front of the building that do not appear to be fully shielded. No landscaping has been proposed or landscaping plans have been submitted. The 6-foot high stockade fences and gates would need additional approval from the Architectural Review Board. It appears that the trailers would be hidden behind the stockade fencing. However, the walk-in cooler may not be screened. Upon a site visit, it appears that a dumpster is placed on the property that is not fully screened and should be depicted on the site plan. The proposed project will require the approval from the ARB, the Architectural Review Board, and an application should be submitted if the applicants have not already done so. The stockade fencing, the cooler, and the dumpster are areas in which are most likely to have a visual impact on the surrounding area, given their proximity to the property line. Comments from the fire marshal has stated that the submitted information is sufficient or not relevant to necessitate further review for fire protection. The project is a Type 2 action pursuant to SECRA in Chapter 128 of the Town Code. I have a minor typo here, as that I recommend the planning board request lead agency, but that's not required because this is a Type 2 action. For site plan review, items that should be submitted, so it's a narrative regarding the use of the trailers and outdoor seating. survey / site plan of parking layout with parking calculations. In conclusion, the application is incomplete and it is recommended that the applicant submit additional written details regarding the parking of the trailers and outdoor seating. The proposal will require 2 variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals, an increase in lot coverage and total lot coverage. The planning department recommends that the planning board request an interpretation from the chief building inspector regarding if the proposed parking of the trailers is accessory to the restaurant or is considered a separate use. I'll be going over photos, and so anyone can stop me at any time, but that's all.
Hey, Mr. Girardi, now is your opportunity to speak on behalf of the application.
You're muted, sir. You have to unmute yourself.
All right, sorry about that. My name is Rich Girardi Jr. My father is also Richard Girardi. We own the property together. Well, he owns the property. I'm helping represent this. We really didn't get to an attorney, as everyone knows how crazy it is right now trying to retain people like this. So just a little quick story. This all started when we owned the building. The tenant had just moved in March from another restaurant that they moved out of. They had to bring the trailers there to unload all their restaurant contents. Somebody in the neighborhood had made multiple calls and complaints and kind of sparked this whole situation. So the only way we were able to help get this tenant up and running for the season was to kind of move ahead and do whatever we could in the meantime, like fill out this application and try to get the ball rolling in some way. So sorry for the not completely professional situation here. What we're trying to accomplish is most of everything you see on the property, these fences were existing, and we're really just trying to acquire this additional parking for the cargo trailers. And the walk-in refrigerator needed to be replaced because it was probably 30, 40 years old, falling apart. The concrete underneath it was starting to give out for the pad, and it just was, becoming an issue. So we removed the old one and put up the new walk-in cooler, and that sparked the stop work order when they called ordinance to come by. And we presented to Ann Glennon the fact that, because it's in, I think when I met with Eric on site, said if this can be, approved by Ann, there shouldn't be any issues or need to really go through planning possibly. The C of O is explicit where it says, in the language, it says refer to the survey for other items. And, on that survey, the original survey does show that walk-in cooler, but what she said that because in the language, it doesn't specifically say walk-in cooler, she can't approve it. And that's why that ended up here with you guys. So,
we did put a permit in.
Right. We did put in a building permit because the person we're using for our permit expediting, Dan Casey, thought that should be all it needed. So we submitted the permit, and then we got kicked back. So, honestly, we were in such a big time crunch trying to get our tenant open. We had to put the cooler in, and then the rest was pretty much, like I said, existing. The big thing was getting the trailers off the road because it is the town right of way, and this restaurant's never had parking within its own property. So we figured we'd put the trailers within the property for now. To hopefully, make it more aesthetic.
Mr. Girardi, may I ask a question? What do you use the trailers for?
So he uses the trailers to, we're not 100 because we don't run the restaurant, but from what he tells us, a lot of the additional storage of items that he needs, he keeps in those trailers because the basement of this restaurant's not very large. And he came from a very big building where he had tons of storage. So majority of what he uses for is storing, and he does do some catering on the weekends, I think.
Off premise.
Yeah, he does off-premise catering with the trailers. Not all the time, but I think he
Well-
said in the peak season, twice a weekend or so.
Are they using the trailers to enlarge the restaurant effectively?
Effectively, I guess you could say, yeah, if you need additional space that you just can't find anywhere else, it's, I guess it's an
Storage.
alternative to that yeah.
Who is that speaking?
Yeah, there's
Is
another
there
Board of
someone
Safety
else
guy.
speaking?
This is Richard Senior.
Oh,
All right, very well. All right. Okay, do you have anything else you want to impart to us?
No.
Can I make some comments? This is
Well-
Richard Senior. How are you?
Go right ahead.
Thank you for hosting us. Basically, what I want to say is this, I don't know if you're familiar with the property, but this has been,
Oh, very much.
okay, it goes back a long time ago when it was Augusta's General Store at one point, then it was the Fat Flounder, and then it was Michael's Restaurant for about 35 years. Prior to the pandemic, I had a tenant that's Luis, who ran the restaurant as Michael's. Prior to the pandemic, I basically had to take back the restaurant and clean it all up. And I went to put it on the market for a renter, and we were unable to get a renter, obviously because of pandemic. So we ran the restaurant as the Belmari Restaurant for about 1.5 years. And then we were able to get a tenant because he lost his tenancy someplace else. And Eric Miller and his brother Mark Miller have been in the restaurant business for a long time. They've run Boswick's, and that was when it was Boswick, it was Bay Kitchen Bar. They run the catering place up by Boswick's on the highway. So they've been in the community for a long time, being in the restaurant business. Basically, it's been restaurants for such a long time. We have never really had too many problems with the neighbors because it's been a restaurant. Most people know it as a restaurant and attend the restaurant. It's probably one of the last restaurants in Springs left at this point. So what I'm getting at is we've owned this property for 14 years. In the time of 14 years, we've never actually had any issues over there. We've always done a good job for the neighborhood, always kept the place nice. And most of the neighbors have no problem with it. This just happened, and it sounded like it happened because people were parking at the end. You're looking at that site there. You see that fence is actually not half on our property and not on the. We've moved that forward to stop people from parking there. It became a hazard because people were parking and going down to the beach, not even tending the restaurant. They were parking there because they didn't have parking permits. So they couldn't park down the street. So this has just happened during the pandemic. They were parking on the end there and they were sticking out and it got dangerous. So that was one of the reasons that the Drews originally called, because they were worried. So many cars were coming down there for the pandemic. It was a big area for people to come walk and they were parking on the property, quite frankly, because they didn't have stickers to park down at the beach. And so one of the ways we cured that was because one of the things I said is you absolutely can't have people parking on the end anymore. That was one of the big factors. So we moved the fence to our property line so that no longer can somebody park on that corner and cause it to be a hazard. Because what happens is they come around that corner over there and it was a little bit
Like a blind turn.
Yeah, like a blind turn. So we eliminated that by moving that to there. So we don't have that issue anymore. And that was one of the things that the ordinance guy brought up when this first happened. It had to do with, I believe it was Mrs. Drew, but I don't know for sure, who complained that people were coming around that turn and the cars were blocking the view. They're not there anymore. They can't park anymore. Now the trailers are inside, so it's safer. And she agreed to that when we spoke to her along the way. Said, we're going to do it. We should. I just don't want it to be a hazard. So I'm just pointing that out. I know.
Let me, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask a question. The trailers, do they come and go? Are they there in the same place all the time? Because I thought I heard you say something about that there's catering. There's a catering aspect.
They do off premises. They've done that in their restaurants before, and they do bring it to let's say they cater a party for 25 people. I don't know how many people. I'm just guessing. Mm-hmm. And basically what they do is they load the food into the trailer, and they have all the health permits to do this. and then they bring it to the site that they're doing the party. It's off premise. They're doing no catering on premise.
Okay,
They're
but
only doing restaurant use on premise.
so the use of the trailer, I'm trying to figure out why you're using the trailer. I'm hearing two reasons, and if there's two reasons, that's fine. I'm trying to understand what it is. You're saying that the trailers are used to give you more storage space or more food prep space, or
No, they can't food prep. They can
No.
store. Yeah.
Well, what it is, and what we're now that they've been operating, we've been getting a little kind of a better hold of what it, because we don't even really know for sure. Obviously, the tenant, they know better than we do, but it seems like two of the trailers for the most time sit there with additional, like, you know, chairs and tables, things that they can't fit any more storage in the basement of the restaurant. They seem to be pretty, you know, fixed trailers for the most part. And then there are two trailers that they seem to take out for off-premise catering, and seems to be just on the weekends. And it seems like they do it once or twice a weekend.
Okay.
So yeah, it's both.
And that's so that's how these new people are operating this premises.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Let me move on. If I may, I'd like to, because we've been on this for quite a while. Let me move on to the board and Ed Krug. Ed?
Yeah. So this is a kind of an interesting and somewhat complicated set of circumstances here. I happen to live not far from here. And I frequented all the restaurants that have been on this site over the years. And I also happen to use Maidstone Beach as my beach. So I'm very familiar with this stretch of road. And I think, you know, it's fair to say that many people in the neighborhood, but, you know, this is a real institution in the neighborhood. You know, it's been here since the 70s, as Marco said in his report, and it's been a variety of different restaurants over the years. And I was going to point out the thing that Mr. Girardi did, which is that in the last year since the pandemic, many people who don't have East Hampton Town parking stickers park for the beach very near here, right? Because the need for a permit begins 200 yards up Maidstone Park Road from Harbor Boulevard. So there was already some, parking going on in this neighborhood that was in excess of what people were used to. And then because the operator of this restaurant availed himself of the dining pilot program, has added some additional seats outside. The restaurant is very popular, so that has just sort of exacerbated this parking issue. And we're not here today to really discuss the parking issue, but I think that it has sort of created a little bit of an issue in the neighborhood, and create some slight complications for moving this application forward. In that, even though there's a CO from 2005 that basically, legalizes everything that's on that survey, which is most of what's depicted on this survey that you're looking at. But interestingly enough, over the years, despite the fact that there have been many building permits issued, there has never been a site plan review, right? There's never been a calculation of required parking. And I think it's pretty clear that there's really virtually no space for on-site parking, none. I mean, even the space that's now occupied that's proposed to be occupied by the trailers, which in fact is occupied by trailers, and the cooler, we're legalizing something we're looking to legalize something that's already there. It's not appropriate for parking. There's some topography changes. It's just not someplace where parking can easily go. So I guess the conundrum here is really needing to, so I guess the crux of this really is Anne Glennon's sense of whether this is an accessory use to a restaurant or a second use. And whether or not, if it is an accessory use, right, which my understanding from the operator who I ran into and spoke to a few days ago, and I think, Richard, you indicated you'd spoken to her, and she seems to feel as though this is an accessory use to a restaurant. Would that fact and the existence of a valid CO obviate the need for a future site plan review and having to go through kind of the agony of trying to get a variance for parking, because clearly, it's never going to happen on site. So I think, we need to hear officially from Anne on this subject. Is this an accessory use to a restaurant, or is this a secondary use? And what does that really mean in terms of how we need to proceed, right? Everything that's on this proposal is there already, right? The one thing that isn't depicted here is the fact that where those trees are shown on the western side of the property, there is a picnic area that you saw a photograph of earlier, where there are probably 9 or 10, picnic tables outside, which has sort of dramatically, changed the number of seats at the restaurant. So, yeah, so I guess, so really the key question, I think, is, as I said, is this an accessory use to a restaurant? Is any kind of more formal site plan review required here? And what does that mean, in terms of this parking situation?
Let me ask you, how do you feel about a narrative?
Yeah, we need a narrative.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Apologize.
I asked the board member, Mr. Krug, whether he thought we would benefit from a narrative.
Oh, narrative. I'm sorry. Okay.
A
I didn't hear
written
that.
explanation of what of how the operation is being conducted right now, and what the plans are for the future.
Right.
There are a number of moving parts here. We've got the tables, we've got the trucks, we've got the cooler, we've got all, and it's all in the context of a use that, doesn't have parking, where if it were anywhere else in the town, it would have a lot of parking. So, there are a lot of moving parts here. All right, let me, Ed, did you have anything else you wanted to?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I have a question. When they allowed outdoor seating, I thought they still had to keep the 44 seats. They weren't allowed to add outdoor seating and keep all their indoor seating. That, they're pretty much allowed those 44 seats that were, on their depiction of the interior.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I don't really know the ins and outs of that program.
Yeah, that is correct.
That's correct.
It seems like it would be.
Sharon's right. Yeah.
Are they operating the indoor seating and the outdoor seating?
But actually, you're wrong. The seating, the health department seating is more than 44 seats. It's right on the wall. That's put up by them, and I believe it's 78. I have to. It's been a while. 78, and that's been like that for as long as I've owned it. And prior to me owning it, they actually took some seats out of the inside.
Yeah.
And they put them outside. So they didn't increase. They did take some interior seats out that were allowed by health department, and they did put them out. And then the town, from what I'm told through the fire marshal, gave all these restaurants, I don't know if it's just permanent or temporary or part-time, whatever it's going to be, I don't know. But they gave them they're trying to help the restaurants out because of the pandemic. So they gave them some additional outdoor seats. But actually he still doesn't exceed, because he took some seats out inside, substantially number,
Yep.
and he put some outside. And the sign that's on the wall that's in there from the health department is 70 something, not 44.
Well,
Okay.
this is one of the, if I may say, this is one of the issues here is that in fact, Marco, I'm not sure where you got the 44. I don't see any documentation anywhere about the number of seats.
Yeah, I'll if I can clarify that, and to Mr. Girardi, this is Eric Shantz from the planning department. Since there is in fact no recent or ever a site plan approval for this property, there's nothing established in front of the planning board as far as the number of seats. Normally what we would do in this situation is go by what the fire marshal has as the rated occupancy. I'm sure they have records of it, and we will look into that. I think it seems everybody's pretty clear. The pilot program does not allow you to increase the total number of seats that you're allowed at the facility, at the restaurant, but it does allow Previously, you were only allowed to have 30% of your total seating be outdoor seating. The pilot program, or the COVID program, it's not really a pilot anymore, allows you to put 100% of it outdoors. So we will look into that with the fire marshals. We'll see what the rated capacity is and what they have as far as the seating chart. We'll see, as Marco noted in the memo, the fire marshal, when restaurants do apply to put extra seating outdoors, they have to get approval from the fire marshal, and the fire marshal has seating charts and records that indicate what they're allowed as far as those numbers go. We'll get that information for you for the next time.
Just so you know, he did do that. The fire marshal did get an application. They put the application in properly. So everything is documented.
Okay, great.
Just so you know.
I just want to add that I did include a seating chart from, I believe is from the building department from 1992. That is in the memo itself. It's the last page. I've counted the 44 seats from there. That's all where I counted the seats from.
Okay.
In terms of rated occupancy, it might be more, of course, because that's just occupancy. It's not really seating, but that's just the. I don't know what they have currently in terms of what they filed for today, but that's all I have.
Yeah, it is 70.
Marco.
Yeah.
Is
Marco,
there a number in the CO?
No.
Lou had a question for Marco.
yeah, I just want to get clarification, Marco, on the number of parking spaces that you calculated based on the number of seats, which you have as 44 seats, and it's three seats per parking space, so one parking space for every 3 seats. That calculates to 15 for the restaurant. How did you get 26?
I might have done it wrong, possibly. 44 divided by 3. I might have done it incorrectly. Sorry.
Okay. And by the way, doesn't the
Oh, I think I might have. I'm sorry. I might have also done it by. I think I might have done it by rated capacity, because the capacity was about 70. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was around 70 persons at least. I think that's
76, I believe. It's on the wall.
76. So because it's either or. It says 1 per 3 seats or 1 per 3 seats of rated capacity. So I think I did that number instead. But that's not even including, staff or staff. I don't know how much.
So
or parking for the residents, right? Doesn't it?
That's 2 more.
Yeah.
and also the staff, that doesn't include the staff,
Right.
as you pointed out, Marco.
Yes.
How is the residence used? As long as we have the owners here, does the restaurant operator live there? Or is it a separate family?
He lives there. Yeah, the restaurant operator lives there with his family.
Does any board member have any further comment or question? So we can move on.
I do.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Is there still a basement apartment?
It's all part of the main residence.
The basement apartment under the restaurant is part of the main residence?
It's
not under the restaurant though. It's under the residence. The restaurant part's just unfinished.
It's just where unfinished basement.
Why? I don't think the number on the parking matters in this case. Because it's pre-existing without parking. So.
Right, but I'm trying to establish if there's a second party renting the basement apartment apart from the residence that is occupied by the restaurant owner.
What was the answer to that?
I haven't heard.
Sorry, what was that? Is there a secondary tenant in the basement?
Yes.
They're related to the people living downstairs. There are people living downstairs, but I believe they're related to the tenant.
It's all same family.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many? All right, I mean, I understand that this is pre-existing non-conforming with respect to parking, but I think it's an important landmark for us to assess how many people are actually using this building as a residence.
5.
So there are only 5?
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just
throughout the top and bottom?
Eric, his wife, his son Adam, and two other people. And that's it,
Uh-huh.
5. There's only 5 people. That's the least part of it. In the past, not with me, but people before owned it, before I took over, they used to rent it separately all the time, but I try to keep it as one.
Right. It just seems like, anyway, it's a lot. It's a lot happening on this lot.
Yeah.
On this property.
It's been but unfortunately, it's been like that for 40 some odd years.
Understand.
I didn't start it, and I'm trying to keep it as clean and nice, and I'm trying to keep everybody
recognize that.
informed.
I
Yeah,
recognize
that's
that. I'm really just trying to further my understanding of the demands on this lot and how it influences the neighborhood.
Sure.
I think our question is this an intensification of the use?
Well, that's where I'm headed. Yeah.
Let me, since that has been raised, Kathy, do you have anything else? Because I want to move into that.
Not at the moment. I might later.
This is the situation that we face with. I hope the applicant will understand. We need to get a sense from the chief building inspector whether they consider this a secondary use, an accessory use, whether it's an intensification or an expansion. We need the building inspector to weigh in on this. Now, ordinarily what happens, or the policy that we've been implementing, is that the planning board prepares a letter to the building inspector and with our concerns. We will present that letter to you so that you understand what it is we're asking of the building department. But I used the word narrative before, and I said that there's a lot of moving parts here. I think, and any of the board members who disagree, please say so if you disagree. But I think that the preparation of our questions and the response by the building inspector will be far more useful if we have a narrative from you and your tenant as to the various plans that you have for the various things that you're doing on the property, the tables, the outside tables, the trucks, or whatever they're called, the vans.
Yeah, they don't have a motor. They don't have a motor.
Yes,
Yeah.
but they do. You said that 2 of them go every weekend, so that is something that I myself would like to know more about.
Okay.
And I'd like to be able to characterize that, not characterize, but I'd like to have your characterization of that, so that when the building inspector makes her determination, she can take into consideration what it is you say. So, and then also there's the business with the refrigerator. So, how long do you think it might take you to put together some kind of and it doesn't have to be anything super elaborate. I mean, frankly, if you had an attorney or a planner working with you, they'd know exactly what needs to be done. But how long do you think it might take you to put together a narrative?
Do you want us to get an attorney? Is that what you're saying?
I can't. Thomas,
okay, we don't have to, right? We could do it. Yeah.
You don't have to have an attorney, but the kind of information that I think that needs to be in a narrative for the building inspector are things like what are stored in the trailers? Are the trailers going on and off the property? If so, how often? Seating wise, where are they at as far as indoor and outdoor seating?
Okay.
That sort of thing. And I mean, I think you can take as much time as you need, but I would say if you can get it to us within 30 days or.
Oh, I think we could do that for sure. We could definitely do that.
Let's put it this way. The sooner you're able to get something to us that we can then use to frame out a letter to the building inspector, the sooner the process will move.
Sure. Okay, we can do that.
And the issues that have all been engendered by what you're doing can be addressed in the planning process. So
okay, that's very fair.
Can I say, Mr. Girardi, the planning department would be happy to help you craft that if you want to check with us the list of items that we feel should be addressed or that the planning board feels should be addressed. we're happy to help you with that.
Who's speaking right now?
And
Just
it's
so I
Eric
know.
Shantz of the planning department.
Okay. Hi, Eric. Hi. Okay. I got you. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
Hey, Sam, could I just add one last thing?
go ahead. Go right ahead.
This hasn't been mentioned during the course of this process. And, I just want to bring it up because to me, it's important. When I see an old building like this that's been operating for decades, the first thing that I think of is the sanitary system. That it's not, that it may, I'm not speculating as to what it is, but in a way I am, because it is an old building, and I'm afraid that we're dealing with a sanitary system that's just not adequate. And that, to me, causes pollution, and that's much more important than the parking issue that we've been talking about and everything else. So in the narrative, I would like to know what kind of sanitary system there is. And of course, as Marco pointed out in his memo, if Ann Glennon decides that this is a change of use, then the applicant will be obligated to upgrade the sanitary system. But I just want to point out to the applicant that that's a very important issue, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Let me just address one thing on that real quickly, because I agree with you, but we're not really increasing the number of people with the trailers. The trailers really just are more for off premises than on premises.
Let me suggest that this is a more nuanced, in my opinion, and everybody can have their own opinion, but my view on it is it's more nuanced than I think is being credit is being given for. That's poor English, but I just think that there are many levels to this, and the planning department will help you, but this colloquially speaking, there's a lot to deal with. There are many moving parts. And they all affect and impact each other to some degree, but they ultimately all lead to the determination that the chief building inspector is going to make, which is really going to guide the way in which this process continues for you. So,
Okay.
I'm not being too cryptic there, but
Sam?
Go ahead, Randy. I want to wrap this one up, please.
Yeah, I would ask if we could have a copy of the health department approval, the health department permit on this property, just to clarify what the health department considers is going on here too. And I don't know if the applicant could provide that, or if Eric can get it.
They already had somebody out there from the health department, so they just got everything up to date, so we can get that to you quickly.
Yeah, the more
Not a problem.
The more information that we have, the more information you put into the narrative, the more the more comprehensive and appropriate a result you'll get.
We're going to get all that for you guys. All of that.
I'm going to wrap this up with I don't think looking at the questions that we have, we need to go really beyond the first one, because the second one is about the information regarding the use and permanency of the outdoor seating. That's going to go into the narrative as well.
Okay.
The applicant provide a plan of the parking layout. Again, that is also part of the narrative, but we also, in this particular case, because of the pre-existing parking issue, again, needs to be treated particularly suited to this application.
Okay.
Right. Sam, can I just add one thing? Because Marco did put it in the memo that no sanitary is depicted on the plan, which, leans toward what Lou is saying. And then it wraps in what Randy's saying, that the health department, what their understanding of what the septic is there is what we should know. And that could be a really old document. So I understand the health department just came and made an on-site visit, but I think this is specific information that we'll need. I'm sure Eric can help direct the applicant.
Sure. All right, very well. Thank you very much. And,
Thank you, guys. Have a
great evening. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, the last item before we go to the two rezoning issues is the Nick Cohen Artist Studio. I'm looking for Mr. Catalano, who is
Hi, Sam.
hi, Mr. Cohen. How are you?
I think Mark had to step offline a little
Okay.
bit ago.
Thomas, can we go forward without counsel here as long as the applicant's here?
I mean, if Nick is comfortable going forward, then I'd say go ahead.
Okay. All right. Now, I just want to remind everyone before we get into this one that, you know, Mr. Cohen's got two balls in the air with us. And,
Good
and
time.
that'll be the end of the descriptive process on my part. The one that we've got tonight is the artist studio application. Last time we had the site plan review for the land. So we have on this application, Eric is going to be on behalf of the planning department. Randy, you're the planning board on this. And Mr. Cohen, after Eric speaks, if you'd like to speak, or if Mr. Catalano has gotten back, he can speak. And then we'll go over to Randy and we can hopefully address this one with some dispatch. So go ahead, Eric.
Sure. There's not too much new from the last time the board saw this. This is an application for a 1,094 square foot artist studio on a slightly larger than half-acre parcel. The board previously discussed the fact that since this is an accessory structure over 600 square feet, they will need to find that the application meets three criteria. The first, that the property constraints make it difficult or impractical to construct a studio that is attached to the principal building, or to construct a accessory structure of less than 600 square feet. Two, that the applicant has justified the need for a larger studio based on their art form and scope of work. And three, that the size is compatible with the residential neighborhood. The board should discuss that this evening and determine whether or not you feel those three criteria can be met. Additionally, I apologize, I thought I was screen sharing, but hopefully now I am. This is the site plan sketch that the applicants provided. You can see the proposed artist studio in the northern corner of the property. The board should also discuss whether or not that location is appropriate. Another issue that was already discussed was noise from the artist medium, which is sculpting and involves machinery that can generate quite high levels of noise. However, they have demonstrated they've submitted a noise compliance report, which demonstrates compliance with Chapter 185 of the Town Code. That the measurements that were taken were at 30 feet. So the board may want to discuss as a condition that the studio be at least 30 feet from any adjoining property line. One outstanding issue is that we do not have any information as to where the gray water from the sink, how it will be contained. We're assuming a single dry well will be sufficient, but that information has not been provided. Additionally, there should be a floor plan that has a notation that says no bath, shower, toilet, or plumbing other than for a sink is permitted. That's a quote notation that should be added to a floor plan. The planning board has established that as a requirement on all of the previous artist studio applications. It should be simple just to come up with a general floor plan that includes that notation and illustrates where a dry well would be. The main issue here, which was discussed as part of the site plan portion of this project, is the issue of clearing of the lot here at Lafayette Place. The applicants are proposing revegetation along the front of Lafayette Place of native vegetation. They've replaced a stockade fence that was going to be behind that band of revegetation with a 4-foot post and rail fence as the planning board had requested. Additionally, they've illustrated, you can see those two red circles in the northern corner. They're proposing 5 to 6 foot leyland cypress in a staggered row, I'm assuming, to screen the artist studio from those two neighboring residential properties. The board should have a discussion over whether or not that screening and that revegetation is sufficient. And those are really the outstanding issues at this point. And once those are resolved, the application will be complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing.
Very good. Okay, is Mr. Catalano back yet?
I don't believe he's going to be coming back. He's actually out of town and
Oh, okay.
he's seeing
All right.
family and out of town. So
All right, Mr. Cohen, then you're
just
free
me.
to say whatever you like.
I mean, I'm here to work with you guys. I am here feeling privileged to be here. It's been a long run. We've been working towards it. I made some mistakes, but that's the learning curve of life. So whatever you guys got for me, let's just discuss it and hopefully we end with a happy note. I don't know.
All right, very well. Well, I appreciate the attitude. So,
Yeah.
Randy, why don't you take it on?
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Randy, how's it going?
So I have a question for you. Why not have the studio closer to your house? Like on that line, so the closest neighbor would be you.
Totally. So,
Yeah.
oh, I'm ready. You can keep speaking. I'm not used to. You
No.
let me know when you want an answer.
No, go ahead.
So initially, I believe it's been a long time, but initially, I think the first plan was actually on the south side, which was on the other side of the property. And then we had a conversation, and then the board kind of said, why would you have it over there? Why don't you move it to the other side of the property? So we moved it to the other side of the property. And when we were laying it out, there was the idea of, well, one, we would have to have a driveway to access the studio that would then consume a large portion of this property in order to access it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if in the future we ever wanted to put a second home on the property, it kind of really, maybe makes that harder, takes
Okay.
up more of our land use. So I tried to position it in a place that would be, that made the most sense. I'm conscious of my neighbors. I see my neighbors often. I've discussed this with my neighbors and I let them know, and I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. And this seemed like the most sensible place. At the end of the day, if we need to move it off, I mean, I know what my setbacks are and I exceeded them just so that we gave more, room between me and the neighbors. But if it needs to go an extra 3 feet, so it's not 25 or whatever that number is, I can't actually see it on this survey, but I think it's 25 from the right and 18 from the back. My neighbor that is on the back of that property has maybe a 2-acre parcel or something like this, and the back of that property for the first maybe 80 or 90 feet is untouched. Untouched and a lot of green and a lot of, there's a lot of room between that back lot line and their actual house. The one neighbor that's close to it is that house on Lafayette Place, which I'm very conscious of the fact that we jumped the gun and cleared the land. And I've been, feeling terrible that now this person doesn't really have any good screenage anymore. So through the next steps, whatever I can do to make them happier about what's going on, I'm there to do that just for my own consciousness. Like, I just want to make sure everybody's, in the neighborhood and everybody's together. So.
Okay. Well, I think Eric makes a good point that the noise readings that we got from your guy were at 30 feet. But the setback from the building to the property line on the proposed site plan is less than that. So it raises the question whether the building should be 30 feet so we can rely on those numbers, or if we need a new reading at the closer distance.
Well, it's 25 feet now. I have no issue moving at 5 feet. I mean, I do think that it does make a difference if we're moving at 20 feet or 25 feet, because that could change the site into the future, but I think that 5 feet is totally understandable. I don't have that sound reading in front of me, but I believe they took 2 readings. I think that they took a reading at 30 feet, and then I think that they took a reading right from the door with the doors shut. You know, I think we tried to give an array of a spectrum. Now, again, at 30 feet, I would completely be compliant to move that 5 feet.
Well, I think that, Eric, does that make sense to you that we do the 30 feet on both setbacks there?
I mean, I think it's something that would ensure that the documentation that they submitted, that the location of the studio is, matching up with the documents that were submitted to the official file, because the reading was taken at 30 feet. It was taken with the doors open and closed. As Mr. Cohen is pointing out, and the readings that they got were 58 dBA and 48 dBA with the doors open and closed respectively. And both were taken at 30 feet from the property line. And the maximum allowable noise output at night, which is the more restrictive at a property line, is 50 dBA. So again, the numbers with the doors open and closed at 30 feet were 58 and 48. So 48 is very close to 50. It is in compliance, but it's in compliance at 30 feet with the doors closed.
So we probably, if Nick, if you're okay with it, I think we want to err on the side of not bothering the neighbors, so that increasing that one to 30 feet off the line, I think would help.
Hey, Randy, just before you continue, because I'm confused and I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly or incorrectly, because the way I read it was that the noise measurements are taken 30 feet from the property line. Now, I thought that they stood 30 feet from the property line, not on the other side of, on the other property. So it's 30 feet from the property line that divides Nick's property with his neighbor.
They took it on Sagaponic, Luke. The readings were taken in Sagaponic at Nick's studio there.
They moved 30 feet because I think in the town code, there's something that says something about a certain feet off the property line. And I think it's 20 feet or 15 feet, to be honest. I'm not sure.
15.
It's 15. So technically, you're supposed to be 15 feet with a decibel reading of 50, or my numbers might be a little wrong. But what they did was they went 30 because I said, look, I'm looking not to put this studio right on the property line anyways. I don't want to make a neighborhood feel more encroached by my studio, so I'm willing to move it off. So I said, let's just take a reading from 30 feet. Now, I don't know, because I knew that 15 feet was what you guys asked, what is in code. But so again, I'm willing anyways to move it 30 feet. The one feeling of mine is that the 30 feet from the one house to the right, I completely understand and have no issue with at all, which I have, I think, written at 25 feet or so. The other property has, I mean, I'm willing to do it. Like, I'm not saying I'm not. It's just that the other property has maybe 200 feet to anything that they ever, or 100 feet to anything they ever access anyways, because it's all natural growth. So it's all like leaves. They're never really back that far. So if I could have the studio positioned at that 18 feet, it leaves us a little bit more room off of the road. So it's all here or there. I mean, I'm just trying to like place it in the right place with, taking everybody into consideration, if that makes sense.
I guess, for me, the noise readings are, well, first of all, we don't know that the the noise measurements were taken on a day when you're doing your loudest work, for example.
Yes, you don't, but I can assure you, I did as much noise as I possibly could so that I wasn't like misleading myself or
Yeah,
any.
you know what? I don't think we need, look, the applicant gave us a reading. I don't think we need to go into, you know, the veracity of the testing. I mean, he's presented it to us, and we can accept it for what it's worth. I mean, it isn't the property itself. You know, maybe you want to get into issues about whether the property in Sagaponic is topographically the same as this property, whether it's wooded the same way, and it probably isn't. So, you know, I'm willing to accept this reading for what it is as a guidepost for our application. We really shouldn't be bogged down in this any further.
Well, Sam, the proposal to resolve it is that we have the building 30 feet off each property line. That solves the problem. Then there's no discussion about.
Then I say then I would say I'm willing to do that if that solves the problem. I'm all about solving the problem here. If that does it, I'm happy to abide.
What we really should be working on is, you know, the size of the studio, and whether it's, you know, whether we find it warranted or not. That's where I think where this conversation is supposed to be going. So
the other thing I would mention is that I see on the survey there is actually a dry well shown there.
We did draw a dry well in.
Okay, and then
my mistake. I missed that. Sorry.
Okay, the source of Nick, the source of your water
would be a rain catch.
So you're going to have a cistern or some?
A cistern inside the building is a 50-gallon drum that sits about roof level inside, and it just comes off the roof. Because really, it's really just for, you know, it's not
washing your hands or something.
It's not, yeah, exactly. It's like, do we have water? Here's some water. And then we don't have to run, you know, and that's what I actually operate with now in my studio in Sagaponic. So it's worked for me fine. So I
wonder, we may want to note to that effect that the source of the water is a cistern with collecting from the roof, and then it explains why there's no public water hookup and no well on the site.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think that's it for me. The standard, we've been using a standard clause in the covenants about no toxic materials down the sink.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we follow that along. You know, we just so that people understand, you know, this is maybe the 5th or 6th of one of these artist studio applications, and we seem to be developing protocols as we're going, and that is a good one. And I would say that we should employ it in this. And you know, maybe we were talking earlier today with Eric and the planning staff and Kathy and I, and you know, there may be more rational ways of, I don't mean in the sense of rational versus irrational, but rational in the sense of, you know, that we know how these things are going to be handled going forward. And we may be coming up with, you know, more definite ways in which the artist studio applications are going to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, the boiler, the no toxic materials down the drain, I think should be part of our boilerplate. Yeah.
Well, the boilerplate may become more extensive than just that. So, all right. Randy, did you have anything else, or is that it?
Nope.
All right. So let me ask: does the board find that a detached artist studio of the size proposed is warranted? Do we have agreement on that? And I'll note, by the way.
Yes.
Yes, all around. Jody, I'll note that Ian had to leave. Okay. So there's only 6 of us now. All right. Should the floor plan identify how the wastewater will be contained? And I guess the answer to that as well, yes, because that's what we're doing.
Yes, and also, as Randy pointed out, that it's rain catch, that a cistern is the source of the water.
Yeah, we can mention that in the context of the waste.
Yes,
Water
okay.
in, water out. And the landscape, how should landscaping and revegetation be addressed?
Don't we need a landscape plan? Nothing elaborate, but the spacing and the size and.
I on the survey I put 5 to 6, 10 feet on center.
Okay.
And you know, to be honest, we'll probably plant more. I mean, you know, this is I plant trees around my property a lot, and we definitely I prefer the screenage, so this would be the minimum. I mean,
I would say normally, you know, the planning department would advocate, as we do for all site plans, a full, you know, landscaping plan, revegetation plan. This does have a site plan aspect to it about the clearing, but the notation there references the correct plant spacing. I believe I've already stated the natural habitat type that would be part of the revegetation. The applicants are noting the type and height of the screening plants. I think perhaps in this case, as long as we say, if it does get approved, that we have a condition of approval that spells out what will be planted and at what spacing in the re-veg area, and then something to the effect of, you know, a staggered row, 5 to 6 foot tall Leland cypress along the, you know, northeastern and northwestern sides of the artist studio to screen, you know, the neighboring residences. If we include that and we're specific enough with that in a condition of approval, that may be sufficient, but that's up to the board to determine.
And then
I just have one.
Well, I'm sorry, Kathy, but Eric, and then we also have our typical condition that the items planted will be maintained.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's an ongoing obligation.
part of my life.
Yeah.
I'm signed up, man. I love it.
He's a property owner. Come on.
It's a part of my life. I get more gratification from that than, and you can talk to my neighbors. I'm out there doing, and we see each other, and it's part of, it's a good thing. And
You're the ideal, Nick, you're the ideal applicant.
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah, we'll give them all that credit. All right. Anybody else have anything, or can we now move on?
I did have one question that I wanted to ask. And hello, Nick. Good to see you. I just noticed that the decibel levels at 30 feet or 58. They range from 58 to 48. And 58 is over the nighttime level. So I guess the thing I'd ask is, if you're going to use that noisier equipment, you do it with the doors closed, or, you know, I don't know if that is that a doors closed reading, because it would be 8 decibels over the 50 that's required at night.
Good point, Kathy.
You know, so, and look, I strongly support your application. You know, I know you're a good person. I've known you for a really long time. And, I don't have any question about, you know, your intentions, but this is something that we should be, you know, paying attention to.
Completely. And I'm on board. I mean, I really wouldn't be operating that at night. And
Yeah.
I think the decibel thing was the 58 and 48 was the door open and door closed.
Right.
If I were to be operating, I would have the door shut. Honestly, even if I was doing something noisier than normal, I would shut the doors for my neighbors. I'm not.
Right. Well, I know you to be a considerate person, so I would expect that, but it needed to be mentioned, I think, in terms of those readings that were reported, that, you know, it is 8 decibels over the evening permitted sound level.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. And
can I, Sam, just to summarize and be clear, especially for Nick. So based on what I'm hearing from the board, we would need a revised site plan sketch that shows the artist studio being 30 feet from each property line. I think there was consensus on the board on that. And then also just a floor plan with the standard notation that there'll only be a sink. And then I think once you do receive those, then the application would be complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing.
Thank you for adding that, Eric. And we'll, Nick, so that, you know, there'll be a letter, it'll go to Mr. Catalano explaining those
What we need to do.
two matters that Eric just brought out, so that you have a guidepost of what needs to be done.
Can I?
All right, thanks.
Can I say one? Never mind. Thank you guys very
Thank you.
much. I know
Okay.
you're very busy. Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Bye, Nick.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
All right. All right. We have one item on the regular meeting, and we'll come back to that and we'll wrap with that. But before we do that, we have two rezoning for comments and recommendations to the town board. Just so the folks who may wish to speak with respect to that, you know, ordinarily, I said this at the beginning of the meeting, ordinarily we don't, while we've been on Zoom, don't take public comment, spoken comment, we take written comment, of course. But because this is a zone change and it's not an application, and we're basically only going to hear from Eric on it, and then we'll have our discussion. If there are any people who are affected by the zoning change and wish to speak, we'll hear them. I would ask them to keep their comments to a minimum, and bear in mind that we know that the matter has been on in front of the town board, and there was actual noticed, theoretically, noticed public hearing comments, and I don't know if every board member has heard those comments, but we have a link, and I believe most, if not all, have seen the comments that were made before the town board. Again, we ordinarily don't pay, we're listening to this because it was public comment, and we're not saying we listen to town board meetings. But in this case, we listened to public comments made at a public hearing, I should say, at the town board. So with that, sorry for the prolixity of that explanation. Eric, you're going to do first the 395 Panago Road and then the Wayne Scott Limited Business Overlay?
Yeah, I think the board should discuss each one separately. You know, we'll handle 395 first, and then Wayne Scott.
First, that should theoretically be quicker. So yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview here. I did submit a letter to the town board, which was attached to the memo that I sent to you recently, to the planning board. This is an application to add an affordable housing overlay designation on a roughly 12-acre property. This property is situated on Panago Road, right by the intersection of the Panago Road portion of Montauk Highway with Hampton Road. Hopefully you can see the aerial photograph of the general area. To the far left on your screen along Montauk Highway is Town Hall. So this is very, very close to Town Hall. The parcel is highlighted in teal. Again, this is a roughly 12-acre parcel. This was purchased by the town recently, and the town, in its resolution and in its public hearing, when they were deciding to purchase this property, did so with the understanding that 7 acres of the property would be for municipal and affordable housing purposes, and that the remaining 5 acres would be open space. This sketch that you see here is not definite. The proposal right now is to put an AHO designation over the entirety of the property, so that the location of the parkland and the affordable housing can be determined at a later date, so that it's not handcuffed to being either in the front or the rear of the property, that being the affordable housing. That was a point of discussion that hasn't quite been settled at this point. The parcel contained a single-family residence, which was condemned recently. So it's otherwise unimproved. It's mostly uncleared. I will show you also that recently you've had 2 subdivisions that abut this parcel. The parcel is roughly in the center there. It's not highlighted. To the north was the EEB Farm subdivision. 4-lot residential subdivision with a reserved area with a man-made pond, which would abut the northern end of this parcel, and then an agricultural reserved area strip along the train track that you can see in the lighter green there. To the east is the Panago Hill subdivision, another 4-lot subdivision, and you can see in dark green there the 2 reserved areas that were established as part of that subdivision. So basically, when the town is considering whether or not a parcel should have an affordable housing overlay designation, you're supposed to consider a number of factors: public water availability, close to downtown or shopping areas, public transportation. This property meets the criteria for all of those. There is an area of businesses both abutting the parcel and then right across Panago Road. It's serviced by public water, and it's along the public bus line for Suffolk County Transit. I also attached to you a letter from the Community Housing Opportunity Fund Committee, which strongly urges the affordable housing designation on this property. I think everybody knows that there's a dire need for additional affordable housing in the town of East Hampton, and this could contribute to that. The theoretical maximum yield on this property is 56 attached apartment units or 15 single-family residences. Assigning the AHO designation would, in theory, allow for that as a maximum. There might be different methods to get there, whether it be wastewater treatment or transfer of development rights, but that would be the theoretical maximum. This doesn't behold this property to that level of development, and currently there is no project in a draft stage for an affordable housing development, so those numbers are not set in stone if that designation is given. So basically, we recommended, we being the planning department, to the town board that in keeping with their intention of when they purchased this property, that this, we strongly recommend that this be given the AHO designation. We hope that the planning board will echo that, but basically that is the general concept here, and I'm certainly available for any questions that the board has.
Very well. Thank you, Eric. We don't have somebody on the board who reports. So if anybody wants to make a comment, I'd ask you to please, keep it brief. This is affordable housing overlay. So, and it's vacant land. So I know how I feel about it. But does anybody else have anything? Does anyone have anything they want to say about it?
No, I think this is a good spot for something like this.
Okay.
And I would just say that the community housing committee, which I am a member of, also recommended to the town board that they do single family housing here at a density not to exceed 3 units per acre. But I definitely fully support this.
At the risk of, thank you, Randy, at the risk of being presumptuous, is there anyone who doesn't support the AHO designation on this?
No, I think it's a good idea. I think I'd like to move that we, send comments, favorable comments to the board.
Yeah, Thomas, we don't need a motion on that, do we? Or Eric, do we need a motion on that, or just
I don't think so. It's not a formal resolution.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, neither did I.
Mr. Kramer, comment from the public?
On this one? Go right ahead.
Very quick. I mean, I'm not, I want to really speak on the next one, but very quick comment. First of all, I completely support the idea of affordable housing overlay on this property. I think it's very suitable. The only comment I want to make, and it's not really pertinent to what you're going to send, but the conceptual plan of putting the development at the back of the lot and the open space at the front does not make any sense to me. So when it comes around to actually developing it, I think the housing should be towards the front and the open space should be to the north.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I would suggest that, that really what I wanted was from public comments to be from folks who are directly impacted by it. But, having said that, I would think you might be better off directing that comment to the town board rather than to us, because I think the planning, the extent of our comment is the placement of the AHO on this particular parcel. So,
Tim, I think it would be helpful if we just did a roll call vote or something. Not a roll call, but I think if we could say that it's unanimous, I think that would be good.
I thought I did that. I said, is there anybody who disagrees with that? And I thought I didn't hear anyone say anything. It was one of those.
Well, Ian isn't here, so.
Ian's not here, and that'll be put in our comments that there was
Right.
of the board present. So, one of those, Randy, it's one of those speak now, forever hold your peace deals. And I don't think anyone spoke now. So that's our piece. Sorry for the mangling of the language. Is that all right with everyone?
Yep.
Yes, let's move on.
All right, now on to Wainscott.
Okay.
Go ahead. There was I think it was Mr. Whalen's client was here previously.
Yes, she may still be on. I don't know if she is.
Okay,
Nina
but you'll be
Bauer?
speaking. Will you be speaking for her?
I am. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Eric, take it away.
Okay, I'm just preparing the visuals here. But basically, this is a proposal to change from CB Central Business to B Residence with a limited business overlay. A total of 7 properties at the western end of downtown Wainscott, the Wainscott Business Corridor on Montauk Highway. I will show you the parcels now with a wide overhead view. And then also, excuse me, I'd like to put the zoning designation boundary here. So as you can see here, and I should zoom in a little. Okay, now you have the zoning labels. So this is basically the core downtown area of Wainscott. And the proposal would be to add the LBO to the highlighted properties here. Now, this is a proposal that comes directly from the Hamlet study of Wainscott, which was to rezone these properties in the manner that's being currently proposed. And this, I attached this to this page of the Hamlet study report to what I submitted to the planning board. But basically, the recommendation, you can read it right here. It's specific to this area. And it talks about the central business area is a linear strip, consolidating the traditional downtown business uses into a pedestrian-oriented core area with coordinated highway access and parking is a key objective of the Wainscott plan. Restricting the linear extent of the CB zone will help reinforce the desirable walkable pattern of development. The land in the westernmost section of the CB zone is bordered by protected open space and residential development and is generally characterized by low intensity, low traffic generating uses. The area functions as a transition zone between the entrance to East Hampton and the core business area. Intensification of development and traffic generating uses in this area will reduce functionality of Montauk Highway. Rezoning this area to residents with an LBO will continue to permit low-intensity business uses with second-story apartments and focus the more intense uses to the east where they can be better accommodated. So that's the specific recommendation of the Hamlet study. And I suppose skipping back to the aerial and zooming in a little bit, the memo that was given to the town board from the planning department was actually prepared by Joanne Powell, who retired last week. But this is one of the last memos that she prepared for the town board. In the memorandum, she goes through really 2 major aspects of what this rezoning would, the effect that it would have. That being really the uses that would be allowable and the dimensional regulations that would apply to either redevelopment or, complete redevelopment of the site or additions to the existing structure. So, as you know, CB is one of the most, one of the most largest variety of uses other than CI in the town. In the LBO district, you could have the following uses: animal husbandry, which is unlikely, antique shop, artisan craftsman's workshop, office, personal service shops such as barbershops, beauty parlors, a riding academy, which actually none of these lots are large enough to accommodate, a taxi company, a florist or flower shop, a tennis club, also they're not large enough really, and semi-public facility, which comes in various forms. So she notes that of the 6 parcels, and there really are 7 here, but one of them is the park that was recently purchased by the town. So there's really 6 remaining privately owned parcels. 4 of these contain office uses, which are permitted under CB zoning and would be specially permitted under LBO. 1 has a single family residence, which is pre-existing non-conforming under CB, but would become permitted under the LBO because the underlying zoning would be residential. The 6th, containing the Eastgate Cottages, has a CO for multiple residents, which is a pre-existing non-conforming use under both the current CB and the LBO designations. So she lists in here the individual parcels. This one, I think we're starting.
Start on the west.
Yeah, starting on the west.
On the east.
On the east, yes.
Start on the east. Sorry.
This is a 2-story professional office and storage building. This is a single-family residence. This is the hopefully you can see my cursor here. I'm skipping over the park right here. This is the multiple residence with 12 rental units, and then these are 3 individual lots with offices. So basically, one thing to keep in mind with the LBO designation is it only applies to the commercial aspect of it, only applies to the first 200 feet in depth. All of these properties are right up to 200 feet in depth. So essentially the entirety of the parcels would be able to be redeveloped commercially. Trying to hit the pertinent points here. Again, there's also a limitation to the size of a building you can have. That limitation is 2,000 square feet in the LBO. The Wayne Scott Professional Center is totals 3,265 square feet, so it would not be allowed to expand. That's the office buildings in the corner here. Residential structures. One of them has a very small residence of 832 square feet, I believe. From what I heard at the town board public hearing, Mr. Whalen, who's here, represents the owner of that lot, but he can speak to that should you allow him to. The other one is 1,900 square feet. So obviously the smaller residence could over double in size, but the other larger residence would only be allowed a modest addition with that 2,000 square foot cap. Let's see here. Okay, so it's also noted here, no new single and separate vacant lot can be created unless the planning board requires a recordable instrument limiting the use of the newly created lot to a single family residence or for a park or open space purposes. I think I'm skipping to something irrelevant there, but point of interest is that 3 of the subject lots have large lot easements and cannot be further subdivided. Factoring in parking requirements, 2 of the other parcels could not practically be developed if subdivided under current zoning and would not have sufficient lot area. I'm sorry, I should have skipped this. She's talking about the subdivision potential of the lots, which is virtually nil. And then also the LBO does have codified architectural standards. Those should be considered as well. That is another difference. She's highlighting the differences here between what would be allowed in redevelopment under the current CB zoning versus the LBO, which again, going back to the Hamlet study, that recommendation is in part to soften this transition zone into the downtown Wayne Scott area. So I guess besides use, the other main thing are the setback and dimensional requirements. I won't go into this, into the, kind of minutia of the exact details. She does detail the changes for each exact lot. But, as you would suspect, the CB zoning setback requirements and building and total lot coverage requirements, the maximums are, minimum setbacks, maximum coverage, are amongst the most, the least stringent of any of the zoning designations we have in the town. That obviously would change with a B residence zoning designation and an LBO. It would require greater front yard setbacks, greater setbacks for Montauk Highway in this case, and greater side and rear yard setbacks. Additionally, the allowable building and lot coverage would decrease under that zoning designation, that being the LBO, if the town board does elect to make that change. So basically, the conclusion here is the town adopted the Wayne Scott Hamlet plan into the town's comprehensive plan. This plan recommends that the westerly most section of the area zone CB be rezoned to B residence and LBO in order to prevent highway sprawl, reduce traffic, and create a transition between the residential area and a more developed commercial area. So it was directed to the town board to discuss the implications of that rezoning on the 6 privately owned parcels. And just as with the previous discussion, it is part of the town code that the planning board is to give their recommendation on any rezoning request or proposal that's made, their recommendation that being to the town board. So I will leave you to discuss this. And again, obviously, any questions you have, I'm right here.
Very well. Thank you, Eric. First of all, before I know Mr. Whalen wants to speak, LTV, do we have anybody on the line who wants to speak on this?
Chair, there are 2 callers on hold. The first caller is the person that you referenced who called in at the very beginning. She's been on hold the whole time. And there is a second caller. I don't know if it pertains to this, but I would imagine so. If you'd like, I can open it up to them first if you want to check.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see who they are and give them a chance to hang up if they want to or wait and
Sure.
speak.
I'll unmute that number. The last 4 digits end in 1997. I'll unmute that now.
Hello, caller.
There's a little delay, I believe. Caller, if you can hear me, the phone ending in 1997, you're live with the planning board.
Hello? Sir?
That's just a replay of our previous recording because there's an echo. They have the feed on in the background. I'll do one last time. Phone ending in 1997. Are you there? Hello, caller. Are you there? Okay, Chair, I'm going to mute them because they're not responding, and you can move on to whomever you'd like.
Mr. Whalen, do you want your client to speak or you to speak? And again, I'm going to ask you to keep it, brief because,
Oh yeah, let me. I'm sure Nina will want to speak separately, but I would like to make a pitch for her first. So first of all, Richard Whalen, I'm representing Nina Bataller. Nina is the owner of the easterly 2 lots that are affected by the proposed rezoning. Those are 372 Montauk Highway and 374 Montauk Highway, the far eastern ones. There we go. They're both around 10,000 square feet. The easterly building is actually occupied by a residential home design studio. It both does, as I understand it, I got this information from my client and from talking with Pat Trenzo, they do design work for homeowners, and they also sell furniture and other furnishings directly to those people, and they have a showroom for that purpose. So it's sort of a cross retail office design type of use. That lot, I just want to point out, that lot is already overdeveloped under central business zoning. So there's nothing further you can do on the property right now. Next door, however, is Nina's house. That is 374 Montauk Highway. And Eric had the cursor there a moment ago. I think the house is something like 768 square feet. It's a very small 1-story house. It's on a 10,000 square foot lot. Nina uses that as her residence. She has a frame shop as a home occupation. Okay, the frame shop, East Hampton Frame Shop, is home occupation use. There we go. The red building is on the right. That is a barn type building. That's, I just described what it uses. Notice the big building behind it. Notice the studio. There's an art studio in the lot behind it. That's proposed to stay in the central business zone. All right, right behind. That's not owned by Nina Bataller. That white gabled building right there. And Nina's is the little yellow building to the left. So let me start by saying this. All right. I think by and large, the Hamlet studies that the town did were done very well. I think the people who worked on them did a generally good job. But when it comes to this recommendation, I can only reach one conclusion, and that is that they thought they needed to do something or recommend something. And they said, well, let's recommend we change these properties here to B residence LBO because it'll reduce whatever. It's not going to accomplish that. All right. There are 6 affected lots. If you take out the former swamp building, the swamp property, which is now a town pocket park, there are 6 lots. All of them except for Nina's house are commercially developed. The Wainscott Professional Center, which Pat Trunzo owns at the western end, those 3 lots, they're fully developed. It's an office complex. Just east of him is a multiple dwelling motel type use, which you can see where the cursor is. By rezoning that to B residence, which is, let's make this clear first of all, LBO, the underlying zoning is B residence. It's got an LBO overlay, which the town board has changed from time to time, what that means, but the underlying zoning is residential. You zone that thing from central business to B residential with an LBO, you're pretty much locking in the non-conforming use. They're not going to convert the property to a one-family house, so they're stuck with what they've got. I think when you look back, the history of the LBO district, the first LBO was something called the Retail Business Limited Business Overlay, and that was created in 1971. The modern zoning code in 1984 modified that into what we now know as, again, the LBO, but it is fundamentally a residential zone. All the dimensional requirements, the dimensional setbacks, the coverage requirements, they are all B residents, all right? Right now, I did my homework before I spoke with the town board last week. On the Montauk Highway, the north side of the Montauk Highway in Wainscott, from Town Line Road to Wainscott Stone Road, right? That's the eastern end of the Wainscott Business District. Remember, Wainscott Stone Road does cross over the highway there. There is one residence on the Montauk Highway. That is Nina's little house, all right? The effect on her commercial property, if you rezone it, is not that great because it's just going to continue as it is. But the effect on her house property is pretty dramatic. She's stuck with a residence. There are a few allowable commercial uses in the LBO, but you're limited in terms of what you can do by the coverage and the setbacks. Most importantly, coverage. Total coverage falls from 80% in central business to only 50% in the B residence zone. Let me cut to the chase. What I said to the town board and what I'd like to say to you, and I think the town board, there was a hearing on this last Thursday. They all seem to be paying careful attention, and I'm hoping we had a receptive audience. There is an alternative. All right. I understand that the Wainscott Hamlet study wants, at least for appearance purposes, wants to make it look as though the town is downscaling the potential for future development, notwithstanding, again, that 5 of the 6 lots are basically fully commercially developed. What I would ask you to consider, and I can ask you to consider recommending this to the town board, go to neighborhood business zone. A neighborhood business zone is less intense. There's less total coverage. There are fewer allowed uses than there are in the CB. It's basically an intermediate step between the central business zone, which is the current zoning, and B residence LBO, which is extremely restrictive. I'm hoping that's what the town board will consider. And I would like to recommend that you recommend to the town board that it consider some sort of a lesser included option. And I would offer for that neighborhood business zoning.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mann. I understand from that there's another caller on LTV.
Excuse me, Chair. Just the previous person that I tried to unmute has left. They're no longer
Okay.
there. And the previous woman, I believe Nina, we've been talking about, is still on hold. That's it.
Right, very well. Nina, if you indicated you might want to speak, if you feel like you have anything to add, I'm asking you to just keep it brief.
Chair, I'll unmute her. I haven't unmuted that
Please,
now.
yes, please do. Sorry. Yes, please do.
Hi.
Nina? Hi.
Thank you for letting me speak. I really appreciate it. I've been sitting in my car on the side of the road, so I had cell phone service. Obviously, you guys know about that. I own the 2 properties. One change I would say is whoever said that the building on the right, the eastern side of the building, is not an office building, it's a retail store, and it's been a retail store since it was built in 1964, if I'm not mistaken. I've owned the property since 2004 and have had retail stores there ever since. My recent tenant is, she does do interior design, but she uses it as a showroom for a store. She sells furniture, she sells all kinds of stuff, pottery and rugs, and, you know, it's all really high end and it's very expensive and very fancy, so she does a lot of it by appointment, but it's definitely a store. It's not an office by any means. I'm just looking at my notes, I'm sorry. I do want to say that I object to the extremely restrictive zoning classification of the residential with limited business overlay. And, you know, 374 Montauk Highway is my primary residence. It's on less than 100 by 100 square foot lot. It's a tiny little piece of property. And out of the 6 that we're talking about, it's the only residence. And all the other ones are already built out. They're all commercial structures, so mine's really the only one that's going to be the most impacted by all this. You know, I understand that the zoning is going to limit those as well, but my house is the one that's the most impacted. And I'm talking about the changes that LBL means in terms of the lot coverage. Rick spoke about that a little bit. But when you're talking about a tiny piece of land, I just want to make sure you guys understand the amount of space you're talking about. It's going to go from 80% of the lot to 50% of the lot. So specifically in my case, we're talking about 7,700 square feet total, including the parking and the whatever accessory, whatever you guys call it. It goes down to 4,800 square feet. It's really small. I'll have 40, when you do the math, it's actually 40% less overall lot coverage to make that change. It's huge. It's like a really big deal when you're talking about a small space. You know, if you're talking about a big piece of property, it's a totally different thing. My lot is 9,643 square feet. So we're talking about 7,714 square feet is the exact. It's currently allowed, going down to 4,821 proposed. Historically, my residence property has always been, since 1954, surrounded on all sides by commercial properties. You know that the town bought the place next door, and it's going to continue to be zoned commercial. It borders my property on the west side, all the way across the back of both of my properties, and then to the newly property. What did I write? I'm sorry, I made notes. Behind it, there's also the new building that's just been put up. It was actually put up before the Wayne Scott people even did that survey. It was put up after the Wayne Scott survey was done. On the eastern side of my property is SRK Pool Company. We have a fence that goes between us. They continue to maintain their CB commercial zoning. They keep an entire fleet of trucks and heavy-duty commercial construction equipment on the property, like right next to mine. So it's, just to be clear, it's not like I'm living in like a normal residential neighborhood at all. I'm surrounded by commercial property on 3 sides, and I'm facing the busiest road in the Hamptons, and that's not going to change in any way. Like when you guys say you want to soften the transition, well, let's see, you know, there's office buildings, then there's a park, then there's little property, and then there's construction company, and then there's really hard, commercial, then there's home goods right next to him.
Okay,
So,
Nina, we get it. I mean, we heard from Rick, and I appreciate you feel passionately and strongly about this, but we really need to go on to our own discussion. So, and we can see from the overhead. So I don't mean to be abrupt, but you know.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, sir, but you know, this is like really important to me. This isn't like a little bit of, you know, like this, I know this is a note on your agenda, and I've just waited here for an hour and 45 minutes on a cell phone on the side of the road so I could talk to you for a couple minutes.
I know, I appreciate it. I have to be cognizant of the time, and you know, we had a lot of items on the agenda that took a lot of time. So
Sam, I have one point I did.
Rick, we haven't, you know.
Sam, this is 30 seconds.
30
seconds, please.
30 seconds.
One other thing I forgot to mention here, talking about the dimensional rules. You'll find in the planning department memo, among other things, when the town board changed the zoning the LBO regulations in 2005, they specify, first of all, if you have an existing residence on the property, and Nina's house was built in 1954, you're required to use the existing house. You are not allowed to even move the house. So if someone wanted to redevelop her lot, her residential lot, let's say for an office, you couldn't even put the parking behind the building, nor could you build a new purpose-built building for office, because that's how the LBO regulations are right now. So it's very strict. And I think an alternative, as I, again, proposed to the town board, and I would ask you to do, would be to recommend NB zoning instead of B residence and LBO.
Thank you. All right, I want to turn it over to the board. I know how I feel, but let me hear from, let me start with Ed, and I'll just go around the table, if you don't mind. So Ed, could you chime in?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I definitely hear the arguments being made by Nina and by Rick, and I really do understand the objective here and why the Hamlet study, made this recommendation. I'd really like to hear from other members of the board and how they feel about this. But if there's another way to accomplish the same thing without creating the kind of hardship we're talking about, I think we need to consider it. There are many sort of high concept ideas in the Hamlet study, and I think when you get down to the brass tacks of executing and implementing something, I think we begin to sort of see some of the detail in a different way. Mm-hmm. So I'm open to the idea of considering something else.
All right, thank you very much, Ed. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but
that's okay.
I knew that this week I'd start with you. So Ian's not here. Lou, you're next in line anyway. So go right ahead. You're muted. You're still muted, Lou.
Sorry about that. Couldn't find the unmute button. Anyway, I'll just make it brief. I'm convinced by Rick's argument that I think this does. I think it does present a hardship to his client, and I think that I believe that his suggestion is a good one. And I think that suggestion will also accommodate what the town board is trying to do to make that a transition area in Wainscott. So I would recommend to the town board that they reconsider their original decision and take up Rick's suggestion. I think that would accomplish, that would kill two birds with one stone. So that's my
Thank you. Thanks, Lou. Kathy?
Yeah, I agree. I think that I want to applaud the town board for taking steps to implement the Hamlet plan, the Hamlet studies, and the comprehensive plan. Wainscott is a hamlet that's needed attention for a long time, and I'm glad that they're picking this up. But I feel as though, I think Ed said it best, that if the solution can be sought in a less restrictive way, especially given these 6 particular lots, that would not be so punitive to the only residence in there. And the idea is here to support residences, it would seem to me. Then I think we might try a different approach, recommend a different approach. And if it doesn't work, you can always go back to the residence, but you can upgrade to this next level again. But it seems to me as though neighborhood business would really solve the problem.
Yeah. Okay, Randy. Thank you, Kathy. Randy?
Yeah, I agree. I think I would go a little further with a scalpel and say NB up to the old swamp, and that should be rezoned parks and conservation. There's no point in leaving that in.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the Wainscott, the medical complex, I would say NB, and then those two, if I'm not mistaken, there are two houses on the westernmost section. Is that right?
No, it's,
No?
it's all the Wainscott.
Oh, it is.
professional.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it ends. That's where this rezoning ends.
So there's two houses between the swamp and the Trunzo, or no, that's the hotel. Okay.
There's a motel kind of thing there.
Yeah, then I find their arguments persuasive too. NB with a little PC in the middle.
Sharon?
Yeah, I agree. I listened to the town board meeting this afternoon, and I think they make a very good argument. I think neighborhood business would do the trick, and especially since she's the only one there with a residence.
Thanks, Sharon. I hope that the applicant now isn't too upset with me for cutting the discussion a little short, because that was exactly the way I see the town does want to do something. They do want to soften the impact. I think that there's very little danger of anything happening to the professional center. I mean, they spent 7 years or some incredibly long period of time before the planning board getting that thing just exactly perfect. And let me tell you, I drive past it nearly every day, and it's just exactly perfect. So I think it's fine. I don't expect that there would be any change to that anytime soon. I think Randy raised the right point about what is known as, I hope I get the name right, folks, Del Mastro Park over there in Wainscott, which was recently put into place, and it's a very lovely space. And and I think putting it in PC is a really good idea. And but the real salient issue here is the impact on these two tiny lots on 27. And I think that the applicant and the applicant's not the applicant, sorry, it's not applicant, the property owner and the property owner's council have come up with a very good idea, a compromise, if you will. So I think that it's, Ed, did you want to chime in? Because I know you kind of held back there for a second. Are you on board with all of this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it makes tremendous sense.
I'm glad we came back to you then. So it's, these are the recommendations. 6, again, one member had to leave early, but all 6 of us are unanimous in our belief in this. So. Again,
Thank you.
Sorry for, cutting you off there, but it is 8:57 now, and we have one item on the regular meeting, which is Lou.
Bye, Rick.
Bye.
Bye. Well, take care, Rick. Lou, the Montauk Marine Basin Communications Antennas. I'm not going to read the rest of this. You go ahead.
In the matter of the application of Montauk Marine Basin Communications Antennas, Verizon Site Plan Special Permit Personal Wireless Service Facility Modification to Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-6-3-17, comma 20.1, comma 20.2, comma 21. I have read the resolution amending approval, and I move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Opposed? No. Ed, that wasn't an opposed, was it?
It was not.
Thank you. Okay, 6-0. All right, before we take a resolution to adjourn, we have no meeting next week. Our next meeting after that is on July 7th. I will not be there. But you will be in Kathy's more than capable hands. And there's a possibility that we will be moving out of this cyber world. I don't know. I haven't heard anything definite, but I have heard that the town board is doing some kind of hybrid or something, and they're the night before us. So it's possible that this may be our last or almost last Zoom meeting. With that, I want to once again thank LTV, because, when the history of the pandemic is written, LTV is going to be on page 1. So
That's true.
this town No, we were, all kidding aside, a year and some months ago, all the people who, do these meetings were like, how are we going to operate? And the answer is LTV stepped up and, it didn't, and there were remarkably few glitches when we got, the plane flying. So, thank you.
And our wonderful planning department.
And yes, and the planning department and the planning board staff, Jody,
Right.
thank you all. Like I say, I won't be here on July 7th, but we will be back on July the 21st. And so I will look forward to seeing you then. And did anyone have anything they wanted to add before I take a motion to adjourn?
Just a quick note, I'm not going to be here on the 7th either, just for the record. Okay.
Thank you, Ed.
So when are we going to know about whether it's hybrid, not hybrid, or whatever we don't know. Okay.
That's why they make email.
All right. Fine. Got it.
And a special shout out to Mike at LTV.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here,
Thank
here.
you, Michael, for keeping us on.
Hey,
Thank
Mike.
you. Thank you.
With that, I will wish you in advance a happy Independence Day, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor? Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:01.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Take care.
Good night.